All right, so kind of out of the blue, Wizards decided to ban a couple of cards in Explorer. It's existed less than 2 weeks on Magic Arena. For those that haven't been keeping up, Explorer is kind of the Pioneer at home or Pioneer placeholder format on Magic Arena. It is a paper possible format that is just all of the Pioneer legal cards that currently exist on Arena. It had followed the Pioneer ban list to start, so thus both Winota, Joiner Forces, and Tybalt's Trickery were legal in the format at release, but they've subsequently been banned. Before I dive into my specific opinions on whether or not I think these changes are good or bad, I like to start by looking at some data. So I'm going to look at data sources on untapped.gg. They're one of the more popular deck trackers for Magic Arena, and they present the data in a pretty digestible form with reasonable sample sizes. So let's go ahead and take a peek here. So to start, we've got best of one stats for Explorer. Naya Winota is the most popular deck, but it only has the second highest win rate. And even at that second highest win rate, its win rate overall is comparable to decks 3, 4, 5, and 6 on here. And it's 2.5, almost 3 points less than the number one deck, which is the Mardu Vehicles deck, which is a very similar combo deck to Winota. It's the Greasefang deck that puts Perihelion into play and effectively cracks you for lethal most of the time. Now, let's flip over to best of three stats. So for best of three, Naya Winota, still the most popular deck, but not by quite as large a margin. Its win rate does go up here, but its win rate is still very comparable to the Mardu Vehicles deck, and it's not that far off of the third and fourth, and kind of the fifth rate at 5, 4, and 4%, so you get a little bit far up, but within a couple percentage points of 3 and 4. Past that, I think it's reasonable to look at and compare these win rates to other formats. So let's compare this to the other paper format that exists on Magic Arena, which is Standard. So looking at Standard best of one, the highest win rate deck here is 59%. And then there's 58, 57, 56, 56. So very comparable win rates between Explorer and Standard, honestly. The top deck's right around 60%, with a handful of things in the 56% range. After that, similarly for best of three, the top two decks, the very top deck, actually has a higher win rate than Winota has in best of three and Explorer. And Esper Midrange also has a very high win rate within a point, etc. But then again, very similar. A lot of 55s-ish is in here after that. So naturally, when I looked at these stats, I assumed there was more to this than this. Because if these are the changes we're making, and these are the stats that these decks have, if these stats are a problem for Winota, we should have problems in other formats, right? So I found this update really baffling, especially, I didn't even talk about the other way, we just looked at Winota. Tybalt's Trickery is banned. Tybalt's Trickery in best of one, this is where it's at its absolute best, because Tybalt's Trickery combo is unplayable in best of three. It has a 3.2% play rate and has a 42% win rate. And again, it's not even a blip on the radar in best of three. So they not only banned a deck that it isn't even the best deck in the format. Winota is arguably worse than the Vehicles deck. And in my anecdotal experience playing it, I think the Vehicles deck is more powerful than Winota, and the stats here seem to imply that that's also the case. You could disagree with that, it's close. But in my opinion, I think the Mardu Vehicles deck is better. It's also very similar. It's this combo deck that gets you on turn 3 occasionally. It's just such a weird change to me, because especially the Trickery deck, it's just not good and it's not popular, but, and this is subjective, so feel free to disagree with it. You don't need to tell me that I'm wrong on this, because I can't be wrong. It's an opinion. Things like the Trickery deck and things like Winota and things like this Vehicles deck, this is exactly the appeal of playing a non-rotating format in Magic. You're supposed to have these weird interactions that are occasionally powerful and sweet that can't happen in Standard because they're happening between cards that were printed years, sometimes decades apart, and they do something awesome. And even when they're not good, they just kind of pop off, right? Like, as someone who was losing to Goblin Charbelcher in Legacy 1 out of 3 games or 1 out of 4 games, you know, a decade and a half ago, has just always been a part of Magic. And it's so strange that it feels like this ban list update is because a bunch of people on Reddit and Twitter got pissed off that they lost to Timbalt's Trickery and they lost to Winota Joiner of Forces, and despite what the stats say and despite what my experience as someone who plays a lot of Magic, you know, reasonably competitively, says, we banned these cards anyways. I want a modicum of consistency. It's just, if Winota is bannable in this format, Greasefang should have also left with it, is just point 1. Point 2 is banning a 43% win rate deck that has a sub 4% play rate because people find it annoying to play against. Can we ban every control deck in every format? Like, you know? Grixis control is awful, but it sucks to play against. My board gets wrath for the 4th time in a game. I'm annoyed. At least the Trickery deck, when it's annoying, the game is over in 4 minutes or whatever it takes. It's just, yeah, I guess I'm just out of words. I'm done rambling at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and close the video out, but I'd be curious to know what your opinions are. Do you think this is reasonable? Do you think specifically that banning Winota and leaving Greasefang legal is a reasonable thing to be doing? That's the big thing that hangs me up on all of this, is the Winota deck and the Vehicles deck play out almost identically and have almost identical stats in best of 3, and the Vehicles deck is arguably better by the stats in best of 1. And I don't get it. I'm just, as is often the case with Wizards ban list updates, I don't get it. Help me understand. Do you understand? Are you lost too? Commiserate with me in the comments down below, and you know, we'll be back doing this again tomorrow, I guess.